Would you like to moderate again?
No, running between sessions, so I apologize. I came in as I could this one, and it really strikes me when you're talking about this question of how do the scientists know? How do we know? And what framework, what knowledge framework should we draw on in order to get the tools to answer that question? If it's an epistemological framework, or is it a linguistic framework? And so I started thinking about it in terms of language. Mm-hmm. That is, let's say if we had, here we are in the US, the ugly English speakers, if we had someone from France or Germany, a mother who was grieving, but she spoke in German, we wouldn't immediately dismiss her, would we? We'd find a translator. Right. And this is what Mark Beckhoff has done in his ecological studies of other species. And I think that we really narrow our scope when we think that language takes place only with words. Mm-hmm. That there are bodily behaviors that we can also see, there are gestures, and that this is part of language. And our translation methods could be more robust, and then we would be better listeners. And I think this is the problem of Western culture, is that we associate authority with speaking voice, but not listening with the center. And it's gender, and class, and race, and why, of course, isn't it also speciesist? It is. Yeah. Well, thank you. I have nothing to add to that.
Could I just add that in my presentation I made reference to Aaron Lowe. I'm working on zoo aesthetics, and he's working on zoo poetics. And he talks about the rhetorical energy that animal have, and I'm speaking of non-human animals have, and human animals, that is nonverbal, but it's an energy that is rhetorical. And he's talking, he in one of his papers was talking about why in English courses don't we bring in texts from, say, dolphins singing or in their language, to kind of rub up against poetic text, that text that we recognize as poetic. And so I just thinking of that.
Also thinking about your paper, I mean, one of the things that breaks the bonds and the balance of language and grammar is love. And I've been just been starting to work on a paper that's about an animal studies paper that's about joy and love. And I don't know where I'm going with it yet, but it was great to hear your paper. What started me going, have you guys seen the video? It's on YouTube. Of a scientist who discovered, I think his name that rats giggle and rats laugh. So wonderful video. And what's wonderful about it is the scientist talking, because if I can just, it'll take about a minute to tell this. And he's a nice man, but he says, well, he noticed the rats were tickling each other or something. They were playing and they were making these little squeak sounds. And he said, for 2 years, we didn't realize that the rats might be laughing. And I thought, it goes to the question, can scientists think? But, they have to follow the rules, I guess. Because I said to my friend, I bet you if a rat heard people laughing, it wouldn't take him 2 years to realize that this is laughter.
It goes back to your original point. Did the scientists think?
Yeah.
Maybe we should be saying that.
And also to the interpretation of other kinds of semiotics, I guess. But what's also charming about this video, and I also recommend it to everyone because it's just a hoot, is that you can see that. So then the scientist is tickling the rat and eliciting this laughter. But you can tell after a while he's having getting as big a bend. He's enjoying it, and there's this mutuality of the scientist and the rat, and this kind of love, and maybe love is going too far, but I'm not so sure it is, and joy in their mutual activity of tickling and laughing. You can tell he looks forward to this mission the rats do. Anyway, so I'm just kind of thinking about that. But it was great for me. I was thinking about that and how lucky I was to be on a panel with you. So I could hear you.
Question. I'd like you to expand just a little bit on your idea of nonviolence that you kind of had to skip over in the paper.
Right. Well, within various Eastern philosophies, there's a
concept referred to as ahimsa, and it loosely translates to nonviolence. Because I originally, when I proposed this paper, I was going to try and do both of these things, meta and ahimsa, in a little bit more rigorous of a way, but I ended up focusing significantly on my methodology. But ahimsa, in terms of nonviolence, is, to my understanding, comes from a place of metta, a place of love. So you make choices to be nonviolent, operating from that position. So what that looks like is not going to be hard and fast in every single situation. Nonviolence is in some ways easy to challenge with thought experiments, utilitarian thought experiments. Well, is it better to kill one child and save 100 people? And how does nonviolence fit into that? From my perspective, when I think of nonviolence, it is something that actually is applicable to me in my day-to-day living. So what I always return to is my own personal ethics. So how do I be nonviolent in my own life? What choices can I make? And it's obviously incredibly challenging and difficult to know where you extend into violence, because this is the world that we live in. Like last night, Sarah Jane was talking about, she has her bottle of water, she has a situation of using palm oil, and that can be really overwhelming, the fact that you can't actually be totally vegan, so you can't eliminate certain elements of violence from your existence. And part of why I'm interested in looking at this from a Buddhist perspective is that Buddhist philosophy comes down to thinking about how to eliminate suffering. And suffering doesn't just encompass, visceral pain or something like that, or mental pain, obvious things that we might consider suffering, but also pleasure, because once pleasure is removed from you, you crave that. So it becomes a different kind of suffering. So I think that there's a really an amazing opportunity to sort of bridge these ideas and work with a Buddhist idea of nonviolence, non-attachment, metta, to come to a place where we experience more love for more beings in the world, and as such produce a more loving, happier world. I hope that kind of answers your question.
I was just asking for expansion, so you didn't have a question to answer.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's my expansion.
So then I would like, after she's done, I'll ask the
Sure,
question.
of course.
I had a question and a comment. And my question for you is how you would deal with non-attachment then in terms of non-human animals. How is that an obstacle for you in thinking about a Buddhist framework for approaching non-human animals? And just one second. And then a question or a comment I had for you was that I kept thinking, love that you brought up Kuhn. I kept thinking also though about the cultural material theories of Raymond Williams and the dominant narratives and the emergent and residual. And because over and over again I keep seeing things from a long time ago, literature that talks about, like, for instance, Deja Barnes used to do recording, and she always she had a piece about a gorilla, and it was just like, we knew that there was love, there was consciousness. We always did. But anyways.
It's interesting that you mentioned Williams, because one of the things I left out of the paper when I said there are multiple causes, and I'm only going to address the two when I was looking at, the force of the paradigm and also the force of grammatical linguistic structures, that clearly they're a materialist analysis is required also to fully understand why the whole culture has been so stupid about this. If I can say that, it's true. If I can just say that.
Yeah.
Well, to speak to your question, then I think non-attachment is an ongoing practice, and practice you fail and you try again, and again, where metta comes in, loving kindness extends to yourself as well, and I think gentleness is a really important thing to bring into all this. Again, to